All righty. That's called Chronic Blues with John Coltrane at the top. We have Johnny Splon on trumpet, Sahib Shihab on baritone sax, Mal Waldron on piano, Paul Chambers on bass, and Albert Tootie Heath on drums. This was recorded in 1957, but released 2 years later in 1959. This is Leid Stories. I'm Latrice Leid, and we pick up from where we left off with each other yesterday, this being the final night or final day, depending on how you look at it, of the Democratic National Convention. People are wrapping up. They're going back to make some key points from their various presentations and basically reinforcing their call for the American voting public to do the right thing and kick Trump out of office. How that goes, we don't know. But we see today a very interesting development, and that is that Steve Bannon and several others, Steve Bannon was, as you recall, a very close advisor to Donald Trump, and even was given credit for getting Trump elected with a very aggressive outreach program. But he's been indicted and charged with fraud. It seems, according to the special prosecutor, Bannon and others conspired to undertake a fraudulent fundraising project to build a wall on the southern border of the United States, yet another wall, and diverted the funds from that project to their pockets. And how surprising, very surprising, isn't it, that you would have people being so unprincipled and dishonest. But that's the story of the Trump group. That's what they do. And on the other hand, we're learning today from these reports that Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, ventured off on his own and is continuing or planning to continue to venture off on his own and cut his own deals. Supposedly he has been caught in one deal that is selling sophisticated military equipment to the United Arab Emirates. You know, it is so sickening. It is so sickening. You would think that by now, I mean, even if they're tempted to do these side deals and these dishonest arrangements that they're making, and it's all about money, you would think that something would make them pause and say, well, if I'm caught, this would bring tremendous shame and embarrassment on the president, and I don't want to be the one to do that. I don't want to get involved in anything that would cause shame and embarrassment to the president and to the country. But that's not them. It's everyone for themselves, and they're making tons of money while they can. They're situated perfectly to do that. It would not surprise me at all that the president knows or knew these things were going on, because, of course, he gets his cut, too, if that is the case. So things are developing that give an entirely different view of this president who says he loves this country. And, if only the previous presidents had the kind of entrepreneurial spirit and so forth, the country would be better off. Well, according to prosecutors today, Steve Bannon did not have that attitude about the country when he decided that he and others would come together and concoct their own side business, and Jared Kushner and others would do exactly the same, come up with their own side business, making hundreds of millions of dollars. And this is what a government is for, and this is why people become so involved in governmental affairs, because they situate themselves strategically, not just so that they can support a president, but that they can launch their own clandestine operations and businesses on the side and make a ton of money. So even if Trump turns out to be a one-term president, if you're selling military weapons and so forth, you're doing all right. Even if with just one term, you make a lot of money. And that is the recurring theme in big government. Everybody, you can't just say, you can't accept them on face value. You could almost be sure that they've got something else going that probably the president doesn't know, or that even involves the president, and the president is getting his cut without having to play a major role that the public sees. Well, this is not a good thing, but this is Trump. Trump sees this as yet another, just a small challenge, and they'll get over it. They'll hire a whole bunch more lawyers, and they'll start the process of defending, quote unquote, themselves, because after all, they're totally innocent. They're completely innocent. They would never do something to cause shame to the president and the office of the president and the United States generally. They'll never do something like that, allegedly. So there we are. All right. Tonight happens to be the final night of the Democratic National Convention. They're wrapping things up. And what we'll talk about here is, what did the last couple of days, 4 days, tell us? What did it prepare us for? And did the convention succeed as a convention, with all the different speakers and so forth? Did it succeed in making a very strong case for the election of a Democratic administration and for the ouster of the current administration? Did it do that? Did it come across as a credible opposition to Trump? Do you think that people identified? I mean, this is just your view. This is just your gut feeling, because we have no body doing polls or anything like that. We're just operating on observation and our gut feeling based on what we did observe. But the fact is that it's come to an end, and then the Republicans start their next turn comes a couple of days from now, just within a week, and they start theirs, and then it's on. The wholesale attack and counterattack is on. So, what do you think of the last couple of days? Did Joe Biden come across as credible? Did he have something important to say? Did he convince you or people that you know that he is moving in a whole different direction away from this dictatorial and a corrupt administration? I hate to say it, but that's the word for it. An administration that is chaotic, corrupt, and an administration that doesn't really seem to have bonded with the people, nor carrying out in a sincere way policies that would improve conditions for workers of the United States. Did they succeed in that? Did they make a credible argument, the Democrats, for a change in administration? Did they come across as credible and sincere about working very hard to earn that confidence among the people? And for you personally, how do you interpret all these, the razzle-dazzle, the conventions and the big sell? Did it really move you? Did it convince you that it is the better choice, the Democrats, as opposed to the Republicans? We'll hear from them in a couple of days. And where are you right now as you reconsider what you have watched or read or seen, that, okay, the situation is very critical, and even if you were initially convinced that you want no part of it, there's something that has convinced you now, having seen a couple of speeches given by some of the prominent members of the Democratic Party. Is there a change of heart? Are you seeing or beginning to see that you cannot be idle? You cannot take a hands-off position at this time. You have to make up your mind one way or the other to cast a vote. 888-874-4888 is the number to call. Let's hear what your reactions are, or your reaction is, to all that has happened so far, and whether it is persuading you that this is a critical time, this is a strategic time to become involved and be active in the process of elections. 888-874-4888. Jay from New York, you get us started today. You're on the air.
Yes. Good afternoon, Utrice, and to your listening audience.
Thank you.
I find it to be non-entertaining. I find it to be useless. If you notice, they're not talking about what they're going to do for the American public. They're just basically talking about getting Trump out of office, and they're not saying what the plan is to move the country forward. Obama's talk about the killing of the democracy. There's been no talk in regards to, just things that Trump said that he was going to do that he hasn't done. I myself don't understand why no one has talked about the wall and why no one has turned around and used him talking about how he said Obama golfed too much when the amount of money that he spent on golfing trips himself is absolutely mind-boggling. So, I haven't heard anything, but I did today hear something that I thought was kind of laughable, enjoyable, funny, and all of those things. The indictment of Steve Bannon. Oh, that right there, I don't even understand in a sense why they playing games with Bannon, because Bannon ain't gonna turn coat on you know, the president. He ain't gonna give the president up because he knows that even if Trump is not reelected, that he'll give him a posthumous pardon to be able to go free when it's all said and done. Now, if Bannon decides to, turn on Trump, now it's gonna really get interesting because, I believe that Bannon knows all the dirty secrets because he was the one who put most of them into play to get him elected in the first place. So, I mean, that could be quite interesting, but I think what even more interesting was today, when the reporter asked Trump about all of these people that you've been associated with getting indicted, and Trump basically said, "Hey, I don't know nothing about that." and people just fall for it. I mean, we're really in a pickle here. You got a Democratic Party that has nothing to offer, and you got a Republican Party that's doing everything in its power blatantly to steal the election, and unfortunately, the media is not doing the necessary investigation and putting things into play so that
you are in
really
full blaming mode today. You are in full blaming, finger pointing mode today. When you say that the Democratic Party has nothing to offer, I mean, come on.
I mean, but if you have something to offer, don't you think over these last 3 days you would have articulated it? Don't you think over these last 3 days you would have something?
It is possible that you probably missed the purpose of this kind of convention. You probably missed it. What is the purpose of it? The purpose is to lay out where they intend to go, what they are thinking, what are the great goals that they're trying to pursue. It is not meant to be a be-all and end-all. They're introducing people who will play a major role as the election proceeds. But it is not meant to be an answer for everything, not at all.
You got to give me a reason to vote. You got to give me a reason to vote, Utrice. They haven't given me a reason to vote.
Well, if you have no reason to vote, don't vote. That's the whole point.
No.
But you can't decide. You can't decide. There's a reason for the convention. They laid it out. They didn't pull one over on anybody. They laid it out saying, this is what we want to accomplish in the next couple of days. We want to tell you who's running. We want to tell you our message. We want to tell you why it is important for you to get exercised about voting. The whole thing that you expect, a big, a huge project, first of all, it could not have been accomplished in the time. And number two, that's not what their agenda was. They were very clear what the agenda for the convention was: to endorse the people who, and present the people who will be playing a key role in this election, to present them to the public. They did that. They did not get too heavy-handed about Donald Trump. Yeah, they gave him one or two wallops, but that was not the purpose either. The purpose was not to engage in a fight with Donald Trump. The purpose was to share with the public the vision of the party, to introduce key people who will be taking on a leadership role in the party, and to convince people that this is not a time to just sit back. this is a time to get involved because so much depends on it. They accomplished that. Now, you may not be satisfied with it.
Well, if you feel as though they accomplished it, that's good for your part. But for me, I don't think they accomplished anything, to be honest with you. I mean, they haven't done anything, I feel, to make me want to go out there and vote. You know what I mean? They just haven't.
That's sad.
You know,
I mean, I don't mind. I don't mind that you have difficulties or you have issues with certain things that were done, but I will challenge you on your view that nothing was done. I'm sorry to say, but that does not hold up.
The job of a convention is to make you want to go out there and work for the party.
How do you propose to now define what the job of a convention is? The job of a convention is what they said they wanted to accomplish. And did they accomplish that? Whether we agree with it or not.
Okay, so now I can live with that. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm talking about me, it's to governate the people. It's to get the people to want to go out there to vote. It's to get the people to want to work for the party, to go door to door, to feel good about the prospects that your life is going to be better if you get this guy out of office.
Could you accept the idea that not all of that could have been accomplished in this week, no matter how hard they tried? So you have to select and prioritize what you're going to do.
No, I can accept that, but the reality is something should have been able to pique my interest and accomplish me and others to want to work for their election. I ain't getting it. I don't feel it. And, hey, when it's all said and done, it will be determined on November 3rd if whatever they tried to put forward work. Because I tell you, if it don't work, the country is going to be in more trouble than I think we can honestly imagine. And lastly, I'll leave you with this. Lord knows Trump has to. He has to get reelected because if he doesn't, he's going to be indicted and he may wind up in jail for all sorts of various criminal things that he's done and he's been associated with. Now, I think the best thing coming forward in regards to the Democratic Party and the whole election is the book by Michael Cohen. I think that's going to be maybe the eye-opener that the American people need to say, okay, this guy is really a fraud. He duped us, and he's not what he claims to be. I think if that doesn't work, it's over. His beast didn't do it. She did a little bit of it, but Cohen is the one. Have a good one, my sister.
Thank you. You too. Bill from Long Island, you're on the air at 888-874-4888.
Hey, Therese, how you doing today?
Okay, Bill. How are you?
Doing all right. Simple thing, the way I look at this, I've watched some of it and very uninspiring. I did not see any plans for the future. And the way I'm looking at this, I look at Biden. He supported the war in Iraq, supported the actions in Syria, supported in Libya, supported keeping troops in Afghanistan. Now, I look at Trump, hasn't gotten us into a war, signed just reform, and tried to get troops out of Afghanistan. Those are very, very important issues for me, and I think they should be for everybody. And I know Trump has a personality that's very hard to like, but I think on these issues, people have to look at these very, very important issues. War is an important issue. Keeping troops in Afghanistan is a very, very important issue. Trump wants to bring them home. Biden wants to keep them there. At least that's been his past opinions. Also, Biden's the crime bill He's the architect of the crime bill, which ruined the lives of hundreds of thousands of young people. And I believe that when he signed
Wait a minute,
bill,
before you go on, what do you mean he's the architect of the crime bill? Could you prove that?
He said it. I'm taking him at his word. I heard him say he's the architect of the crime bill. I heard him say it in a speech.
I did not hear that. But in any event,
okay.
What were you expecting? This is a major issue, and it seems almost trivial to raise it. But what did you expect would come out of this convocation that we just witnessed? What did you expect it to be?
What did I expect? I expected honesty for a change. Talk about Biden's past and how he's going to correct it and why he's going to correct it and the mistakes he made and what he's going to do about it.
Oh,
that's what I want to hear.
Let me ask you, you're living in the real world. Which person or organization will go through this much trouble to organize a public outreach and for the purpose of confessing sins? How do you possibly in the real world expect that to be a critical element of the convention?
That is the most cynical thing I've ever heard.
What do you mean? Look,
it's cynical to think that
practical.
We're so used to listening. We're so used to listening to the nonsense and the lies.
Well, here's the thing.
Why can't we get the truth?
You are misconstruing, or you have higher hopes, much higher hopes than you should. If you were to take, what is this? This is a convention. It is a convention for the purpose of presenting candidates who will be vying for the presidency, the highest office in the land. Do you really believe that what they will do is devote a substantial amount of time to things that would actually detract from their appeal? I mean, come on, use your brain.
No.
Nobody would do it. When Trump comes on, let me ask you, when Trump's turn comes up next, do you expect to hear the truth about anything from Trump?
Well, listen.
Answer the question. Answer the question. Do you expect to hear the truth from Trump?
That. No, they're going to do the same thing, the same nonsense that the Democrats did.
Which is what I'm trying to say. If you're mature enough to make a preliminary evaluation, and you mature enough to accept it as for what it is, nothing more, nothing less. You are not supposed to go into this expecting great ideals and the absolute truth about anything. This is a political event with specific goals in mind.
Why would they expect anybody to watch it if they're not going to tell the truth? I mean, what you just said is that...
Oh, come on, you're not asking the right questions here. You're asking questions that are naive. I expect you, as a person, you've been on this planet for a while, you should be able to immediately, like right now, you know the Republicans are next. You expect to hear the truth from them about anything?
No.
No, I'm asking you.
No, and I'm going to say the same.
Okay, well, there you go.
Thing.
It's that kind of party.
Problem. This is the problem. People don't expect
to hear the truth. It's not a problem. It is a matter that you have greater expectations than are warranted based on your own experience, based on your own knowledge and experience.
That's what we should aspire to, the truth.
Okay, but that's not our job.
Why are you defending the
not their job.
Why
we should all have straight teeth. Do we? No. And
why
don't we
would you
accept that none of us has perfectly straight teeth? Look,
why would you defend the obsequiousness? and the mendaciousness of what they're saying when the American people deserve to hear the truth. That's all.
We certainly do. And when you don't hear it, what should you do? You turn it off.
No, well,
turn it off.
I do. I mean, I basically do that, but because we're so conditioned to hear the lying, we just accept it.
No. I really want you to come clean here about how you think. You are acting like an innocent child who expects adults to do the right thing.
Okay.
And when they do not do that, you're very upset. I start off from the premise they're not going to do the right thing. I put no major stake in any of this. I just want to see what they say. I want to evaluate what they say. I want to give them a chance to make their case. But I'm not going into this with any great expectations that somehow there will be an epiphany and the truth in all cases will be told. Well, no. I don't have any such expectations. None.
Well, that's a very, very sad commentary on.
No, but it's real. It is real because I am basing this. I'm basing this on years of experience, of years of observation. I'm basing it on that, and I'm hoping when I tune in, it is with a hope that this would be different. It didn't turn out that way. So I was not disappointed. It performed as it would typically perform in a highly competitive election year. But when you tell me things like, well, we have a right to expect so-and-so, you're not living in the real world.
Of course I am. Take exception to that. I am living in the real world, except that I expect, and everybody should expect, some honesty. That's all. And we're not getting it.
Right. So now here comes the second question. If that's what you expect, and I don't know what would make you expect it, if you've observed a string of these conventions and have had the opportunity to weigh what you expected as opposed to what actually transpired, I don't know what would make you expect something different this time. Could I ask what made you expect something different?
Well, just take, for example, Biden's, his obvious memory problems and what I call dementia. I mean, all the pundits and MSNBC, all these people on TV act as if it doesn't exist.
What could the reason possibly be? What could the reason possibly be for that?
Because they're lying, they're hiding, they're being obsequious, they're just lying about the whole situation, and we're not.
How do you know they're lying? How do you know they're lying?
Because
how do you know it is not because their legal department, which is the epicenter of journalism these days, their legal department tells them they will be taking a major risk even to insinuate it because there's no proof, no conclusive proof, and nobody who is supposed to be an expert willing to go on the record saying Joe Biden has Alzheimer's or dementia. Why couldn't that be the case?
Well, I mean, if you want to go by that, there were many pundits on TV that questioned Trump's intellectual capacity. So
yes,
I don't understand why there's a double standard.
Yes, but they have a better case.
No, come on.
They have a better case.
Please, there's video
intellectual
after
capacity.
Video. There's hours of video of Biden just sounding insane. just saying crazy things, forgetting his
Fine,
thoughts, forgetting
but
his train of thought.
who
Come on.
who are you or who are they to specifically point that out as if they have proof? You don't understand how this world works. Whatever it is you observe, you observe.
Right.
We have observed Donald Trump in very compromised positions. We've observed that he's been caught and even accused sexually assaulting people and so forth. Have you heard it presented as proof?
Well, I mean, listen, the news...
No. Well, yes or no? Have you heard all of these charges presented as proof, that there's proof to back any of these charges up?
Well, somebody came forward a while back and made...
No, not that. I'm talking, have you heard or seen, has anyone produced definitive proof of any of these charges against Trump?
I don't remember. I mean, I know I've heard it on TV, them talking about it. When you say presented...
Yeah, they talk about it, but they could talk about it all they want.
Right.
But nobody so far has produced proof. Nobody so far has produced witnesses and testimony.
Well,
so
I mean, we started this conversation.
They by law cannot accuse him of a crime, such a crime, if they don't have corresponding proof. It's as simple as that. So you may think from the outside looking in, well, he's innocent, and the media will go along with that because they are prohibited by their legal department and by their editors to go any further than that.
Right. Well, we started out this conversation by my saying, all I expect is some honesty, and that's the way I feel. And if that is naive, then it's naive. If that's the way you look at it, then in your mind, it's naive.
It's not naive. I would not say that, because that is insulting to say it's naive. It is that we do not fully understand what their parameters are of things that we expect people should be talking about and saying. We don't appreciate there's a very elaborate arrangement that prevents us from knowing the truth, that prevents us from discussing the truth.
I mean, I don't understand. When you say that, we know that Biden supported the Iraq war. That's a fact.
Yes.
Why can't we talk about that?
Because the Democratic
Why can't we talk about the fact that he supported the actions in Syria and Libya? I mean, the crime bill, why can't we talk about that? That's who Biden is. That's who he was.
Well, if you want to talk about that, you have to have the authority to talk about that, meaning you can cite chapter and verse. You can shore up your position with facts. But usually people don't. Usually people just talk.
Are you saying that he did not support the Iraq?
With what they talk.
Okay. Are you saying that he did not support the Iraq war?
This society, supporting the Iraq war, you may be surprised to know, in certain political circles, was a very patriotic thing. Some of our greatest politicians stood up and said, this is what we must do. We have to do it if we are to continue to be a credible force in the world. We have to assert our dominance in the world. You see, you're not understanding this stuff.
That was coming from the neocons, but I'm just saying that this is Biden's path, and you have to understand it. And if you want to deny it because you don't like Trump, you do that at your own risk.
Not at all. Not at that.
Not at all.
I say we simply have to appreciate the realities that we're dealing with and in. Now, so why don't you get up on a soapbox and talk about Trump the rapist?
Listen, I'm talking about Biden. Trump has his own problems. Listen, and
tomorrow.
It's all documented. We all know that.
Don't tell me it's all documented. You have carefully avoided saying anything that comes close to that because you understand the legal ramifications of it, and you know you won't survive.
That I don't know about that.
You won't survive if you were to attack Trump on those grounds with those accusations as they exist, and yet people say the evidence is there. People have testified. Hearings have been held. Blah 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 blah. But I am saying to you, we have to appreciate the complexity of what we're dealing with. And it is never cut and dried. Very seldom is it cut and dried.
But you could say that about anything. You could say that about anybody's record.
No.
Yes, you can. You could say
we
that
could talk about a crime. We still haven't talked about Bill Clinton. We haven't talked, to my knowledge, this is the only program that methodically took apart the Clintons' crimes, not even alleged, but the actual crimes they committed, as a foundation. They're the only ones who did it. Everybody embraced Hillary. Everybody embraced Bill. Nobody talked about the excruciating impact that they had by selling bogus drugs in Africa through a bogus company. I mean, we put it out there with facts and proof, and everybody hated us for it. Why are you attacking Hillary? Why are you attacking Bill? This is the complex world we live in. I am not at all putting you down or differing with you because you have a different point of view. Not at all. I'm asking only that you keep in mind that your expectations hinge on a world that does not exist. It does not exist.
Again, I have to say that is a very, very cynical way to look at things.
Cynical, I think it's the
wrong way to look at things.
Is it true? Let me ask you, is it true?
Of course it's true.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that we have to expect it. That means that we should have higher
expectations. I'm not asking anybody to accept anything. I'm just saying this is what has been found. This is what we have presented.
I don't accept the fact that we have to accept that, whereas you do.
I'm not saying that either. I'm not saying we accept it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. I would not have done it if I did accept it. Not at all. That's what journalism is. I
don't know what happened to there is no longer journalism. There's propaganda, so journalism has been gone for a couple of years.
I take exception to that. I do journalism still. I may be one of a few, but I still do journalism. In my head, I still do it.
Okay.
I let the chips fall where they may, but first I make sure I know what the hell I'm talking about, and I have proof.
Okay. All right. It was nice chatting, Utrice.
I loved your call. Thank you. Call again soon, and let's talk about something else we disagree with.
Okay. I definitely will.
Thank you, Bill, for calling in today. Nathaniel from South California, Southern California. You're on the air.
Greetings, Patrice, and the PRN audience. Thank you for your knowledge and your journalism today. What was the question? What are we supposed to be discussing? Because I was doing something. I was wanting to talk.
This recently concluded, at least as of today, and the next convention coming up, which is the Republicans. Did it inspire you? Did you feel? Were you comfortable with what was presented? Do you think they did a good job of making their case?
I do. I watched Monday and Tuesday. I kind of took last night out, and I kind of regret it, unfortunately. But anyway, let me state something to you. I think that the people in America need to be constantly reminded that there are checks and balances in our political system. We are aware of the executive, the judicial, and the congressional, but the fourth one is the people. The people need to be organized, and they need to be smart, and they need to be politically active and not fooled. The Democratic Party has its platform online. You can check it out of what they plan to do. So, they're not going to discuss the plans, but I think what I missed last night was some nice speeches, some nice images, and some nice patriots and people assuaging us with their common views about American life and how they want it to change in a sort of nebulous way to improve things, to make things better. But we always have to remember, as the common people that are not those three major portions of the government, we have to be politically active. And the only thing that people do, the most of the things that people do is vote. And then they go home and just sit around and wait for them to do the right thing for them. And it never happens. I want to say to the people that listen to this show and everybody in America, you have to be politically active. You have to have organizations that have a say in the legislative process in the Congress and the Senate. You just can't sit by and let ALEC take over, which most Americans are doing. And I want to remind people that they should vote for independent, non-corporate candidates that are progressive. We may not be able to do that this year, but please get together, join up, and do it next time. Do it locally. Do it statewide.
As you approached the time to watch whatever it is you watched of the convention, the Democratic convention, did you go into that process fully convinced of something, or did you go into that process to see how they measured up against your expectations?
I did, and I do. Yes. I think that the two major parties, often described as the uniparty by David, are in fact a uniparty. One is a good cop, and one is a bad cop. And I like the good cop, but unfortunately, we have to be more involved with getting the good cop to do what we want him to do. Did that answer your question?
Partly. I was interested in what your disposition is as you press that knob or flick that lever to turn on the television and you're watching. What is your state of mind? Do you have a preset notion as to what should happen, or do you look and say, let's see how close they get to what they say?
Oh, when they get into office, how close they come to it?
No,
or
in
just
the speech
by the
itself.
flow of their program. Yeah.
Yes.
And their past performance. Yeah, I look at it. I realize that they kind of do something. They kind of give us a crumb or two, but most of the cake is not given to the people, and I realize that.
Right. So why are people so upset when, in fact, it happens that exactly that way? It turns out exactly that way.
I think people are upset because they depend on these people to get them the cake. I mean, to get laws and legislation passed that will help the American people. But because it doesn't happen, people are angry, and people should be angry at themselves because they're not pressing these people we put into office to do what we want them. Obama said, "Make me do it." I hope when the Democrats win this time that the American people makes Biden and Kamala Harris do what they want them to do.
Well, I have a slightly different view. I temper anything that comes close to an expectation. I don't expect. I don't.
Uh-oh. You don't expect that. You went out when you said, I don't expect.
I don't have high or unreasonable expectations. I just want to know what they articulate as their purpose for coming to us to talk about whatever. I want to know what the presenters themselves are saying is their purpose. And I measure them against that.
I see. That's a good way. I think I believe
don't want to
I believe I do that too. Yeah, go ahead.
That they have any other mission except the one they actually articulate. And usually it is completely different from what they really wish to achieve. But I listen because I don't expect anything to be exactly what they intend to say, what they intend to communicate. So I'm never disappointed.
I agree. I think that a lot of the speeches and a lot of what we hear from our legislators, alleged legislators for the American people, a lot of what we hear from them is language through the media that kind of assuages the public and just puts them into a state of suspended animation, or it just inactivates them somehow because they don't understand what these people are saying to them somehow. But I think I understand. You know, it's a typical say one thing and do another. But is it always because they intentionally do it, or is it because of the way the political and legislative systems are organized?
I think it's a combination of both. But in any event, it is crafted. Yes. It is crafted communication, which means it's inorganic from the word go.
Yes.
It's designed to accomplish a specific thing. At least that's what their advisors tell them. At least that's what their PR people tell them. And that's what they themselves think they have to communicate. Has nothing to do with the reality of what they really want to say. But we should still listen because it gives us an idea of where they might likely go if they were unfettered and were able to say exactly what it is they wanted to say. Would it be in line with what the party wants to project? Would it be the truth? We're not going to get that. So to go in, you observe, and you can't let yourself become enmeshed in what is a carefully choreographed event.
Yes, I agree 100%.
So there we go. And I don't understand why people have other expectations. You know, they're not telling us what we need to know. Well, of course not. That's the whole point. The whole point is not telling you what you need to know.
Exactly. The thing that occurs to me is that some percentage of what they say they're going to do, and some percentage of what they say they're going to do, and they're not going to let you know that they're doing it.
Exactly. So if you go in with a kind of naive notion that they're telling you exactly what you need to know, they're telling you the truth, they're telling you, their greatest needs and desires and their lofty goals, then something's wrong with you. Something's wrong with you to accept that. Nathaniel? No, I was just going to say goodbye. Actually, we're out of time. Thank you. Thank you for calling in. Thank you all for calling in. And that's the whole lesson today. The lesson is pay attention to yourself and your logic and your own soul and your own mind. It keeps trying to rein you back into reality, what you know intuitively, what your mind is telling you to be suspicious of. They're all the right things, but you insist that it has to be different, and then you get angry when it is, when it turns out to be exactly different. Look, we'll hook up again tomorrow and continue this wonderful conversation, and we'll see each other again. Bye-bye.